Hey Bobcats, Mr. Flato here. Welcome back to another great week at HMS. I hope all of you are coming off a relaxing and refreshing weekend and are ready to get back and rock and roll and put our heads down and get back grinding on another fantastic week at HMS. We have about a week and a half left of second quarter and first semester, so I cannot encourage you all enough to let's really finish this quarter and this semester to the best of our abilities. Let's get our missing assignments in. Let's get our corrections done. Let's make sure we are finishing off strong before we start a new quarter and a new semester. I have a great Bob lesson for you this week that's going to talk about imperfections and empathy. I think empathy is such a huge thing in our school as human beings, in our country, in our world. The ability to have empathy makes our school and our society such a great place and such a better, more enriched place. So no time to waste. Let's get to this week's Bob lesson. I hope you guys like it. Let's put our heads down and grind this week, Bobcats. Make it a great week. All right, we are off and running on Bob lesson number 15. And the title of Bob lesson number 15 is Imperfection and Empathy. But first, let's be our best at HMS. Let's be Bob. Let's be safe. Let's be responsible. Let's be respectful. And let's be a learner. All right, before we begin, let's define a couple words because many of you may not know what the word imperfection or may not know what the word empathy means. And so I went straight to the dictionary to get you folks a clear and concise definition. Let's start with imperfection. Imperfection is a noun, and it means a fault, a blemish, or undesirable feature, the state of being faulty or incomplete. If we were to use this in a sentence, it might mean the imperfections and injustices in our political system. So obviously imperfection is the opposite of perfection. Empathy. Empathy is a noun, and empathy is the ability to understand and share the feelings of another. To use that in a sentence, when Tommy told me his dog passed away, I immediately became saddened for and with him. Empathy is when you can really put yourself in somebody else's shoes and you can feel and understand what they're going through, either because you've been there before and you have felt those feelings and emotions before, or maybe because you just have high levels of empathy and you can understand and you attempt to understand what they are feeling. All right, let's do a little activity now, and I really wish I was in person in your classrooms right now so I could do this in person, but unfortunately I can't be everywhere at once. So we're going to have to do this through the computer screen, and I hope you guys buy into this. We're going to do a little activity really quick that's called How Would You Feel If? And I'm going to talk about some things here. I'm going to talk about common imperfections that maybe middle school students have. And I want you to just quietly in your own mind, I want you to kind of keep a tally or a count and think about, do these apply to me? So let's start with the first one. How would you feel if you were the new kid in school? I think Mr. Boyle shared a statistic with me. 20% of our population at one point last year was transient, meaning they either came or left at one point. That's about 1 out of every 5. How would you feel if you were perceived as being one of the more popular students in school? How would you feel if you were perceived as being one of the least popular students in school? How would you feel if you came to school not always having enough food in your stomach? And that's not because you chose not to eat, but maybe because there just wasn't any food in your house or apartment or trailer or whatever it is that you live and you just had to go without. How would you feel if someone made fun of you or called you names or you felt like you were targeted? Somebody was always trying to ruin your day. How would you feel if your ethnicity puts you as a minority in this school? Where we live here in Helena, Montana, the majority of us are European Americans. That means that we're white, we are Caucasian, we have ancestral roots that came from Europe at one point or another. Newsflash, unless you are a Native American, we are all immigrants here at the United States and in this school. So if your ethnicity is Asian American or African American or Latino or Native American, you are a minority at this school? How would you feel if you're between homes at the moment, or maybe you don't have a stable place to live? How would you feel if your parents are divorced? Unfortunately, the divorce rate in this day and age is about 50%. So approximately 50% of our students come from homes where they're living with mom or dad, or maybe just mom, or maybe just dad, or maybe with grandparents, or with another family member. How would you feel if you lived in a blended family? And by a blended family, I mean you live in a family where you have other brothers and sisters through marriage. Maybe mom and dad got remarried, or you have siblings in the house that you don't share the same biological parents with. Maybe you live with cousins. Maybe you live with your aunt or your uncle or your grandparents, and you have other people living in your home that aren't your biological blood brothers and sisters. Many of us come from blended families. How would you feel if one of your parents was incarcerated? Maybe they are in jail or prison and they are not here to be a mother or father in person day in, day out. How would you feel if one of your parents is no longer here and has passed away prematurely? How would you feel if you're considered underweight? I grew up underweight. I probably still am. I grew up skinny, and I remember getting down in the fitness center. I remember we were doing wrestling things, and I still remember one of my peers giving me a hard time because my backbone, when I did a somersault roll, I think we were doing wrestling or something, it made an indent on the wrestling mats. And I still remember that downstairs in the fitness center to this day. I remember how that makes me feel. How would you feel if you were overweight and you struggle staying in shape? How would you feel if you were noticeably tall for your age? Again, I was noticeably tall for my age, and we live in a society where taller and bigger is perceived as being better, but for those of us that are noticeably taller than other people, sometimes it can make us feel like we don't fit in, or we stand out. I know, especially when I get in an elevator and I'm really close to people, it makes me feel uncomfortable. Conversely, how would you feel if you were noticeably short for your age and you weren't as tall as some of your other peers? Or how would you feel if you weren't as athletic as the rest of your peers and you loved sports and you loved activities, but you didn't quite have the athleticism or the skill set as some of your peers? How would you feel if you were required to wear glasses every day to be able to see your best? How would you feel if your parents can't afford to buy you new clothes or buy you new shoes that you really like? Let's take a moment and talk about this. Is it your choice to have parents that maybe can't afford to buy you the things that you want? Absolutely not. It's not your job to run the family finances or to go get a job. We are 100% dependent on our parents. Many of you aren't old enough to work yet, and so we're kind of at the discretion of our parents. So I want us to think for a minute: why do we judge one another based on the shoes that we're wearing, or the clothes that we're wearing, or how new our clothes are, or name brand or not, or how stylish they are? Folks, it's really materialistic, and it's really shallow when we judge one another based on that, especially when we have little to zero control over that. How would you feel if you have a sickness or a disability that puts you at a disadvantage here at school, or on the sports or playing field? Or how about in the classroom, if you have a sickness or a disability that you have to continually work to overcome all the time? How would you feel if you have a really hard time reading, as well as some of your peers? How would you feel if you just really struggle with your self-confidence? And I know that at your guys' age, 11 to 14 years old, a lot of us struggle with our self-confidence. Some of us may not show it, but the fact of the matter is we all struggle with our self-confidence. So let's do this really quick. I want to go back and I want to go over these one more time, and I just want you to kind of take a tally mark and look at some of these. And I just came up with 20 imperfections, or family imperfections, or living imperfections. And what I would normally do right now is, if I was in your classroom, I would ask everybody to put their head down and no peeking allowed. And then I would say, how many of you had at least one imperfection on this list? And inevitably, everybody would put their hand up. And then I would say, okay, what if you had 2 or more imperfections on this list? And inevitably, everybody would put their hands up. And I would continue on, 3 or more, 4 or more, 5 or more, 6 or more. And what I was really trying to get at was, I would have everybody put their heads up, but what I was really trying to get at is the fact that we all have imperfections, okay? The truth of the matter is, guess what? We are all human beings last time I checked. And being a human being means that we all have strengths. We have things that we're naturally good at, and we have things that we excel at. Every single person listening to this podcast right now. Yes, you. I am talking to you. You have strengths. And I'm also talking to you when I say we all have imperfections. Every single student in this school has imperfections. Every single staff member in this school has imperfections. Why? Because we are human beings. We all have imperfections or things about us or our situations in life that are far from perfect. Okay, and I just went through 20 common ones, and there's probably another 20, 40, 60, 80, 100 that we could really break down if we wanted to. So I'm asking you guys this. Before you disrespect someone else about their imperfections, think about how it would feel if someone was disrespecting you about yours. Because the moment we open our mouths and we disrespect somebody else, we are opening up the floodgates to be disrespected back. Okay, because we all have imperfections. And I want you guys to think about this real quick. It takes the same amount of energy to compliment someone else, to build them up, to say something encouraging and uplifting to them, as it does to tear them down about their imperfections. Same amount of energy. So, let's all make it a goal to have empathy for one another. That is to accept other people's imperfections, to have empathy for them, to feel for them, and the individual imperfections as we all have. I'd like to share this picture quote with you guys, and this picture quote reads, "Everyone you meet is fighting a battle you know nothing about. Be kind always." And what this picture is really talking about is something that I touched on earlier in this B.O.B lesson, that every single one of us has imperfections. But above and beyond those imperfections, we all have things in our life that we are struggling with, that we are trying to overcome, that is trying to beat us down every single day. I was talking with a student last week, and I told that student, I said, about a year ago, I got to a point in my life where I realized that life is like being at the beach. And I know when we think about being at the beach, we think that's a good thing, but what I was referring to is, any of you that have been to the ocean, the waves come and they try to beat us down. And then once that wave comes and tries to beat us down and it doesn't, we got another wave and another wave and another wave. And many of these waves that try to beat us down in life, we don't share with other people. We keep it to ourselves. We're private people sometimes, and I don't care who you are in this school. I don't care if you come across as being the most confident, achieved, well-to-do person in this school. Everybody has problems. Everyone you meet is fighting a battle you know nothing about. Therefore, be kind to everybody all the time. My quote of the week is, and I want you guys to think about this, how much better would our school, our community, and our society be if we all chose to build each other up rather than tear each other down? Something to think about for this week and for the rest of the school year and for the rest of our lives. Okay, JellyBean question of the week winners were, congratulations, Tara Harrington, April Little, Jessica Finstead. Jess, next time, don't put Jessie F. Put Jessica Finstead so I know your whole name. If I don't know your whole name, I don't know who you are, folks. Caroline Bullock and Dakota Cunningham. The answer last week's, the question and answer was, what percentage of New Year's resolutions fail? And some of you put 8%, but that was the percentage that actually people are able to do for a full year. You'd have to subtract that by 100 to get 92%. So 92% of New Year's resolutions fail. This week's JellyBean question of the week is, what color every week is the background for the quote of the week that I just did? So simple question, simple answer. If you think you know it, put it on a piece of paper, put it in the box in the counseling office no later than Friday. Hope you guys like this Bob